Hello, Blue Jays fans. Welcome to episode 329 of the Jays from the Couch radio podcast. We've got a great episode for you. We're going to be talking all things minor league baseball. Hello, Blue Jays fans. Welcome to episode 329. I can't believe it's that many. We've got a great episode for you this week. I want to thank you all for tuning in this week. We've got some great numbers looking back over the past few episodes, and we really appreciate it. Keep it coming. Tell your friends. Thanks for the subscriptions and the downloads and all of that stuff. We really do appreciate it. Whether you're watching live on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter, where we're streaming live right now, where you can add in your comments and questions and all of that stuff and be part of the show, or whether you're watching on the audio version because you downloaded it anywhere you find quality podcasts. Either way, we deeply appreciate it. We've got a great episode for you this week. We're going to actually talk about the Blue Jays up-and-comers, rising stars, future studs, and all of that stuff. It's a great episode for you this week, episode 329. We're so excited. I want to take a minute to remind you of a couple of things. First of all, we have got our Facebook group over at Facebook actually. Join our Blue Jays Talk for All group, and we do our game chats, and a lot of fun and jokes and discussion goes on there. So make sure you're joining up today. It's free. Everybody's welcome because it's Blue Jays Talk for All. Don't forget as well, we're partnering with Left Field Brewery. They've got a whole bunch of awesome stuff going on across the city, all around the city, but as well, you can head to their shop and fill up your cart when you go to leftfieldbrewery.ca, and you load up your cart. You can put a free koozie in there. Use the code from the couch, and Jays from the Couch got you covered. A little gift from us to say thank you for supporting local brewery like Left Field, but also Jays from the Couch. So make sure you sign up today. Make sure you use that code from the couch as well. And don't forget as well, you can make a donation to the Jays from the Couch family here. You can help us do what we do best, support us, keep the lights on, pay the bills, and all of that fun stuff. Your donation is greatly appreciated. We've got our written content at jaysfromthecouch.com. We've got 3 shows every week for you discussing your Toronto Blue Jays. Please consider thank you in advance. And don't forget as well, lots of stuff going on here. We are fighting ALS. We are trying to eradicate this incredibly insidious disease, and we're doing it in a couple of ways. First of all, you can make a charitable tax-deductible donation to our campaign at support.alsevents.ca/Jays from the Couch. Go ahead and give us any kind of donation you wish, and then you can obviously get your tax receipt for that as well. But if you want a little bit more than a tax receipt, you want to wear your pride, you go right ahead, because the Jays from the Couch Redbubble shop has a whole bunch of merchandise, all set up with Jays from the Couch Radio, the podcast, as well as the On-Fact Circle and Sunny Side of the Dome. Lots of great merchandise, and 100%, all of it, 100% of the profits go to the ALS Society of Canada so that we can get rid of this terrible, terrible disease. So I thank you in advance for that as well. All right, let's kick this party started. And to help me do that, I've got host of the Sunny Side of the Dome appearing tomorrow in a special different time. We've switched our shows this week, but Karen Suter joins me, host of Sunny Side of the Dome. Good evening, Karen.
Good evening, Shaun.
And as well, taking the Thursday slot, the feckless wonder himself, Steve Feck, has the On-Fact Circle Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern. How are you doing, guys?
Doing great. Hi, Karen. Hey, Shaun. 329 episodes. It's kind of ironic because I was looking online, and they're averaging 329 in-game promos for all of the renovations at Rogers Center during Blue Jays broadcast. So it's kind of ironic that, here this is our 329th this week.
It's true, and they have to mention it one time for every dollar they spent, right? So
Yes.
329 million times are you going to hear about these renovations? But really, it's been an exciting week in Blue Jays land with finally the Tampa Bay Rays lose, which is just great anyway. I don't mind seeing that happen all the time, but. We're going to kind of skip past that, and we're actually going to focus on the minor leagues this episode. We're going to talk about some rising stars, some maybe some future studs, and maybe some guys that we haven't necessarily talked a whole lot about. So maybe to kind of get things started, just kind of generally speaking, when we go around and start our episodes, we always start with our MLB minute, and this time we're going to do the same thing. Our MLB minute will actually focus on the minor leagues, and we're going to talk about each of us gets 1 minute to wax poetic about this time the unionization of the minor league players, as well as salary and on all of that stuff. Basically, the life of the minor leaguers. So I'm going to pull out the timer here. We get 1 minute for our MLB minute, and we'll go around the horn. Steve, we'll start with you. Your 1 minute begins now.
Well, I guess you could say it's long overdue that the salaries and the benefit packages and the housing allowances are incorporated into professional baseball, especially now that the major leagues have taken over, in essence, control of the minor leagues. Yes, there's individual local owners, but for the most part, everything has been decided. All teams are locked in for 10-year contracts at a time. So it's kind of great that the money's being kind of spread around a little bit. I don't know how I feel about the minor league unionization. Not necessarily that I'm against unions in general for sports, but because how many conflicts are going to occur between when a player then comes to the major leagues and the benefit packages and all that type. I think it's going to be a lot of confusion involved there. But overall, I think it's long overdue. It's great to see. Nice to see that our players are not going to be sleeping 6 to a room now. They can afford to have real meals. And good on MLB and MILB for getting this done.
Oh, absolutely. All right, Karen, your 1 minute begins now.
So yes, when I heard about this, I was excuse me, absolutely overjoyed, as I still am. I don't know how many people have heard the details, but this unionization of the minor leagues comes with a very significant increase in pay. So the lowest salary at low A used to be $11,000 a year, and if you made it up to AAA, then you got $17,500 a year. Well, that's gone up considerably. So now low A gets you $26,200. AAA will get you $35,800. So obviously a huge difference. Not that anybody's going to get rich from that, but I'm a firm believer in that everybody who works should be paid a living wage, and at least this is much, much better. So thank goodness. I couldn't be happier for players who play minor league baseball. They deserve to be able to be paid and live.
Agreed. All right, my 1 minute begins now. Well, I don't think it's any secret how I feel about unions in general, especially when it comes to the Major League Baseball Players Union and Major League Baseball as an entity. And so this is a huge, huge win for minor leaguers. These guys are not the naturally born superstars, right? These are the guys, for the most part, who are toiling and struggling just to kind of chase a dream. And so if they can make a living doing that, that's even better. What I really want to focus on, though, I'm really interested in what this means now for, if at all, the kind of service time at the first 6 years of a major league player's contract, because I still feel that that's where I guess the ownership side of the game is really capitalizing and getting a whole lot for a whole little, suppressing salaries and things like that. As opposed to like the open market, let's say. So that is going to be interesting, whether or not that changes in the next couple of rounds of bargaining. Who knows? But that's one thing I'll be keeping my eye on. Speaking of keeping my eye on things, I am now going to welcome, to help us actually talk about the minor leagues. I was sweating for a little bit there at the very beginning. I may have said a couple of choice words off screen, but to help us really do this show right, we've got Jace from the couch, minor league expert Ryan, better late than never, Mueller. Good evening, sir. Welcome.
Hello, everyone.
Ryan, love you, miss you. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing okay. I'm doing all right. Can't complain.
That's good. I don't want to hear it. All right. So,
exactly.
If it no, I'm teasing, of course. So Ryan, I'm going to kind of get things started here, and maybe just to kind of, in general terms, where should fans who are not really focused on the minor leagues, because this team is really, the Blue Jays are all about win right now, and that's all that's on everybody's mind. So where should people be paying attention to if they're looking down into the minor leagues this season?
Well, that's a loaded question, I think.
Everywhere.
Everywhere, all over the place. Well, this is the thing, right? Like we kind of got spoiled when Bo and Vlad and Biggio came up, because they all kind of came up in a group. So now I think that there's going to be a portion of the fan base that thinks that's how it's supposed to be. Then we just keep on getting these waves of superstars coming in trios, flying up, right? And realistically, that's not true. So I think the Jays front office has done a pretty good job of spreading out their minor league prospects. AAA has a couple good position players. AA has, as we all know, an amazing left-handed pitcher there. And then as you move down, there's a cluster of last year's draft picks in Vancouver that can create some excitement. They're not really high end right now, where we look at them and can't wait for them to come up, but they're good. And then Dunedin has quite a few good young guys, like Tucker Tomlin. He's a guy that I think we should all kind of keep an eye on. They got two good pitching prospects in the two Rojas prospects. One's a right-hander, one's a left-hander. They both throw in the mid to high 90s. So, they're starting right now. So those guys are both ones that you want to keep an eye on. So I like to keep an eye on those low A prospects, because there's so much unknown, so they can just kind of all of a sudden pop and explode like Gabriel Martinez last year.
So let me ask you this before I throw it to Steve for the first question here. Mark Shapiro a long time ago made a big deal about waves of talent, right? And obviously we're kind of riding the crest of that, one of the biggest waves probably in franchise history almost. But do you see, when you look through the system, do you see that kind of wave that he's talking about? Or do you think it's kind of just, there's sprinkling of talent throughout?
I think the waves that you would see aren't necessarily going to be coming straight to Toronto. They're going to be used to make trades, as we saw this offseason. So I do see waves. They're not tidal waves, right? They're gently cresting onto Lake Ontario. Just slowly going up. So I think he's done a good job of getting talent to the AAA level. And we could see like reserve and bench guys coming up with the chance that they can become everyday, but they're not Bo and Vlad and those superstars that we expect.
Yeah, and I think that's something that, and I'm glad you said that right off the top. Like that's unusual in any franchise, to have that kind of superstar talent come up all together all at once. It's very unusual, and I don't think people give that enough credit, and they think they are what they don't appreciate just how rare that is, I think, is what I'm trying to say here. But Steve, over to you.
Ryan, always good to talk to you. We talked, on our Blue Jays Talk for All chat about some guys, and you shot them down already, so I'm not going to bring them back up again. But but there are two guys that really intrigue me. One is Hayden Younger. Depending on what source you're reading, if it's a source that's actually based on field performance and scouting, he could be up as early as this year. When you're talking about all the Twitter morons out there and all the analytic idiots, he's not going to be up here until 2025, I guess, because he's not snapping the spin rate at the rate they want to see that in there. But I remember him vaguely in college. I mean, he was a 16th round pick, I believe. He's always been a reliever. I guess they're grooming him to be, a kind of a bulk inning reliever, which is all the new rave now. Where do you see Younger? Do you see Younger coming up?
Yeah, like he's got good stuff. He's already at AAA, so he's definitely an option. Right, like short and sweet. He's only 22 years old, so I guess they do have some time with him.
Right.
And there's really not that much of a reason to rush him, because they do have other relievers that they could bring up. Right, guys that we know who've been up and down. A guy like a Trent Thornton. I know. But he's got the spin rate. But no, like he could be a guy that, now that they finally said, all right, you're going to be in the bullpen, you're going to stay in the bullpen. That's Trent Thornton. He's not starting anymore. He's in the bullpen. Maybe he can get rid of a couple pitches that he was playing with as a starter. He can, fine tune one or two pitches, and he can be a good back at the end of the bullpen reliever. Obviously, I think that Nate Pearson will be up before Hayden, and I think Zuleto could be another guy that would be up before Hayden.
Okay, and then, and I agree, but I mean, it just amazed me that I see such a disparity about what all of the experts say are going to happen with this guy. I mean, he's been a reliever. I think he was even a reliever in high school. I know he started some, but I mean, I think he was even a reliever most of the time on his high school team, went to a relatively small school at Missouri State. But I mean, I was just kind of curious your feeling, because I feel I have a lot of good vibes about this guy being able to help us, if not this year, certainly next year. The other guy that a lot of people outside of Blue Jays land ask me about is Brandon Barrera. To me, he's a left-handed Manoah. He's a bigger guy. I think he could be prone to some mechanical, issues with his delivery, repeating his delivery. But I think the sky's the limit for him. How far away do you think Barrera is?
He's a couple of years, I think. He hasn't even pitched yet. Right? Like we don't even know what kind of product we're getting. Can he even handle A-ball? Mm-hmm. Right? You don't know until they get thrown in there. Are they a stud or a dud? Right? So he looks good in scouting videos.
But Ryan, I'm going to jump in there though. Like they signed him for nearly $4 million, right? Like there's got to be some kind of guarantee, and like you're 100% correct. Like you just never know until they get on the field, right? But
you just never know.
I mean, that's a big investment for a you never know. You know what I mean?
Oh, for sure. We have no idea. Look at Manoah. Like we compared him to Manoah. Look at how shaky he's been at the beginning of the year. You just never know from year to year, even at the major league level. So it's tough to say, yeah, he'll be pitching in the majors for Toronto in 4 years. What is he, 19 years old? He was drafted as a 19-year-old, mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah, well,
and a broken 19-year-old.
Yeah. Yeah, but you're a watch video guy like I am. I don't necessarily read a lot of reports. I actually like to watch video. I like to see what's going on. From what you have seen so far, is he a fast track guy, or is he a guy with his? I think the knock against him is that he does not repeat his delivery very well at all times. do you think that he's going to be on an even slower track? Forget the injury and everything. Is he going to be on a very slow track so that the Blue Jays kind of maximize and kind of figure out what they have in him? Is he a back of the bullpen guy, or is he going to be a rotation piece?
Yeah, I could see the Jays taking their time with him, especially coming back from an injury. So maybe this year we just see him in the FCL and then Dunedin. Maybe he doesn't start full season at all, but he finishes the year in full season. And then from there, they can make their decision. Obviously, they're going to give him every single chance to start because, like Shaun said, $4 million is a lot to be like, we'll put him in the back. We'll put him as a middling reliever, right? Adam Kloffenstein got a lot of money, and they're still starting him, and he hasn't been able to produce at all.
That's a good point. Yeah, Karen, over to you.
Right. So sort of touched on the guys that I was going to ask you about already. I guess that serves me right for picking a couple of the more obvious ones, but I guess to get into a little bit more depth. So my first player is Nate Pearson, and then after that, Zulueta. So the questions I have for you: how soon do you think Blue Jays fans can expect to see these guys with the major league team? When they are brought up, what do you think their role will be? Short relief, long relief, rotation? I mean, the rotation looks set, but who knows, knock on wood. And what do you think their long-term future is for both of them?
Okay, so their role, both of them will be in somewhat of a long relief multi-inning role.
Okay.
If they come up this year, I see Nate Pearson anytime. Right. He had a little bit of a appearance. He didn't pitch horribly. He had some really bad luck. A couple little like squibblers in the infield that went for base hits, and he walked a couple guys, and that caused the runs to come in. But he wasn't hit hard. Like they couldn't square him up at all. Right. But in typical Nate Pearson fashion, he lost a strike zone in that inning. But he was able to regain it, but he got pulled. But his fastballs were still touching 100, and his slider, he's kind of taken his curve out of the equation a little bit. So he's really focusing on fastball slider right now, which as a reliever, that's all you're going to need, right? Like once through the order, if he can get, 2 innings, 100 mile an hour fastball. I know that major league hitters can catch up to it if it's straight, but he does have decent movement on that. And, our Cuban friend, Zuleta, I always throw an O on the back of his name. I don't know why. I know it's an A. I mispronounce it, but he seems to have more of a handle on his 4 pitches than Nate did ever. So I like him as a starter in the future, but he still has to refine his secondary stuff, right? Like his fastball looks good. He seems to command it pretty good. He throws a lot of sinkers, which gets him a lot of ground balls, which is nice. But his slider, changeup, and curve are still a work in progress. So I don't think they're going to rush him. I think you'll see him maybe if they do bring him up, it'll be in August.
Okay.
Where Nate, like I said, anytime.
Just a question of having an opening in the bullpen, I guess.
Exactly.
So in that case, Ryan, would you say that like Nate, is he going to be called up because of an injury or because he's earned it? Or both, I guess.
That's a tough one. I think he's on the track of earning it. Mm-hmm. You can see he's improving in that role, and I think it is just like we said before. He's like about Trent Thornton. You know, if you give the guy a role and you're not going to swing him back and forth, you're just, okay, bud, this is what you're doing now, right? I think he can focus on that, and he can get that mental side of the game figured out.
Mm-hmm. Right. All right. So I've got a couple here I wanted to ask you about. So first of all, third base. Everybody on Earth knows how much I'm in love with Matt Chapman, and I'm not ashamed to admit it. So you can laugh at me all you want. But he's not going to be around much longer, unfortunately. And if they were to extend him for a couple of years, I'd be happy. But they're not, because he's going out for like at least 6 years. So who, Ryan, is next in line? Is it Elvis Martinez? Is it Addison Barger? Is it somebody else that we haven't even thought of?
I think the next up would be Addison Barger. I watched a couple of games with Martinez, and he still kind of has the same issues with his swing that he did last year, which doesn't bode well for his future. But sometimes it's just a light switch that goes off, and they can figure it out. So I'm going to go with Barger. He seems to have what it takes to be successful at the major league level. At what level, we won't know until he sees a couple of major league pitchers go around a couple times.
Yeah, I mean, he had a hot spring training, right? And obviously, you know, that he was kind of like I don't want to say fashionable choice to replace Matt Chapman. But if you could, Ryan, maybe for our our listeners, is there somebody off the top of your head that you could like compare him to as far as what we can expect? You know, I mean, obviously, if you were to say, well, he's Matt Chapman with the glove and Tony Batista with the bat, I mean, that's very clearly like hello, right? But obviously, that's not the case. But is there somebody off the top of your head that you can kind of compare him to?
No, not really. Like he's an interesting guy. He's got an interesting swing. I don't know how many people have read the articles that he tailored his swing after Ichiro Suzuki, but from the left-hand side or whatever, the opposite side. In the infield, he came up as a shortstop, so he's pretty used to being on that side of the infield, and he's got an extremely strong arm. And he's got really good footwork. So, you know, I think it's just a matter of getting the reps in at third base at AAA right now.
Right. And then would you say that next season is just his job? Like, here you
No.
go. Here are the keys. Because who else would it be?
Free agent.
Right.
Or a trade, right? Like if they were able to do another trade like they did to get Chapman, then that puts Barger kind of on the back burner. And again, he's another young guy that they can wait on him. If they decided to bring him up slowly, injuries happen, he can fill in at short, he can fill in at second, right? And then have him earn a major league spot as a competitive, like we're not talking years ago when we were rebuilding. This is a team that's supposed to be competitive. So I would hate to see, I don't know how you guys feel, but I would hate to see them next spring saying, okay, well, we're giving this rookie the spot. Right? Now, if somebody goes down, if somebody were to go down on the infield and they bring him up and he's able to produce, we're talking a different story.
Right, of course. Now, something else, Ryan, that I know you know, but and our listeners may know about me as well, is that I love fast guys. I love the stolen base, the wheels in the outfield, all of it. So, if we're now looking down into the Blue Jays organization, who does that? Who jumps out at you as the speedster that actually, because often minor league speedsters don't necessarily translate into big league everyday players, speed or no speed. So give me somebody who I can follow this year and say this person, first of all, is the speedster, but also has a legitimate shot at contributing at the big league level.
Well, Otto Lopez is a quick guy. He can steal some bases, and he's the highest in the system right now at AAA. And he's a guy that's going to play infield, and he's getting reps in the outfield a little bit more to get him well-rounded as that utility player. At AA, Stuart Barrera, I don't know how I feel about him as a major leaguer, but he's a really good minor leaguer. So I like him, and he's fast. He'll probably get 50 stolen bases this year. And then when you go down to Vancouver, you got the two Browns, Devontae Brown and Danson Brown. Devontae isn't well known as Danson. Devontae was a free agent, signed as a free agent last year, and he just played, I believe, the last month and a half of the season, and he looked really good, and he's got some wheels on him. But, yeah, keep an eye on the two Browns in Vancouver.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And I wanted to go back to Tucker Toman for a second here. $2 million signing this young man. I guess the switch hitting shortstop. My question is, does he stick at short? Like, I think that's like one of the bigger questions for a lot of shortstops as they progress and they develop. Do you see the ability to stick at the position?
Well, I think that was one of the knocks on Tucker, was that he was a man without a position. So, like, he does well at all positions, but doesn't excel type thing. He's more of a bat first guy than a glove first guy. So, if he can hit, who cares what position he plays? No, I'm kidding. But no, if he can hit, they're going to find a position for him, right?
Right. All right, I want you to talk to me about Cade Doughty. I read, anyway, that it seems like the Blue Jays have kind of narrowed his stance in an attempt to get kind of more power out of him. And so I guess if he finds that power, if it works, do you see him rising quickly? Is this somebody that we may be kind of sleeping on a little bit?
Yes. Yes to all of them. Yep, done. Next. No, he's impressed me early on. He's got a good approach at the plate. He puts the bat on the ball. In the field, he seems to really he charges in very well and has a very strong arm. So he's a guy that could stay at third base. And because he's a little bit of an older guy for that level, I think you could see him in AA. I saw a lot of people saying they wanted him to be pushed a little bit more at the beginning of the season, but I like having a guy start at a lower level so he can build his confidence and really hone in on the tinkering that he did on the off season. So yeah, Cade, I like him. I think he's a guy to keep an eye on.
And MLB has him coming up in 2025, so still obviously a few years away. But at 22 years old, do you think that maybe that could be a conservative guess, and we may even see him sooner than that?
For a competitive team, I say 2025 is realistic. Right. You know, if we were rebuilding, maybe we'd be talking next year.
Yeah. Okay, so last question I have for you before I throw it back to Karen to talk about some Ricky T. Which of the guys that we've talked about already do you see as 100% guaranteed, book it, because Ryan Mueller said it right here, trade chips?
Oh, I think what we're seeing with this front office is they're all trade chips. I know that's an easy way to answer it, but I thought Gabriel Moreno was going to be a off the market, untouchable, and I think we're all kind of happy with what we've seen so far with what we got back for him, but I don't think there's any untouchables. Ricky. I think we'd all kind of cringe if we saw him in the headline saying that they traded him, because good pitching prospects are hard to find. But then if you rewind a couple years, we would have said the exact same thing about Nate Pearson. And
right.
Enough said. Enough said.
And here we are. Yeah.
And
Still
here we are.
talking about Nate Peterson.
Right.
Go ahead, Karen.
So, yes, having a show that's focused on the Blue Jays minor league system, I don't think you can really do that without talking somewhat about Ricky Tiedemann. So, what can Blue Jays fans expect from him? I mean, we saw a little of him in spring training, had a look at his first box score, and I don't think my jaw has come off the floor yet. How long? Well, for the two-part question, how long are they going to keep him at AA? I mean, is he going to be at AAA sooner than later? When do you see him? When do you foresee him in the major leagues, assuming there's room on the roster? And what do you think is his ceiling?
So far, you can kind of see that his ceiling seems to be very high. He's a lefty. Everybody loves lefties, so he's going to get ample opportunity to show that he can pitch, whether it's in the rotation or in the bullpen if he's not able to succeed as a starter. What's their plan? Their plan is to manage his workload, right? So we saw he went 3 innings, faced, I think he allowed a hit or 2, but of the 9 outs that he had, they were all strikeouts. Right? So how long do you leave him there? I would leave him there for 3 or 4 starts if they're all like that. And then then reassess. Like there's no rush for him right now.
That's what I was going to say, is that like it seems like, given the nature of the starting rotation as it is right now, first of all, it seems like the Blue Jays put a premium on guys who are healthy. So that's the first thing. And then with Ryu coming back as well, there is no need to rush him. But does that mean, Ryan, if you're not rushing a starting pitcher, is AA the best place for him, or is AAA? Because we've heard mixed kind of, I guess, opinions on that, in that, there's an opinion that AA is actually where the higher end kind of younger talent is, and then the AAA is kind of a mixed bag, the dog's breakfast kind of thing, where you've got the kind of older guys who, the 4A type players. So I guess, Ryan, if you're not rushing them, do you keep him in AA, or is AAA? Is he going to benefit from a move to AAA?
Yeah, AAA offers a couple things that people can overlook a little bit. Like if you look at the pitching staff that's there, starters and bullpen, there's some age there. So there's some wisdom that you won't get in AA. So having him pitch with those guys can benefit him when he does struggle, if he does struggle, right? Having him pitch against older hitters, some minor league veterans, that they're not going to chase as much as you would see in somebody who just came up from advanced A that's now at AA. So his outs are going to be a little bit tougher to get. So there is that benefit, right? So I can see them moving him up to AAA at some point this year. It's just when, right? Like I said, I would, if he continues to pitch the way he is, I give him sometime in May, because we're halfway through April already. So 3 or 4 starts.
Right. And a move to AAA, whenever that happens, doesn't necessarily signal that he's on his way, certainly this season, to the major league level.
No, but it does, like the way that they're going to manage his workload is similar to what they did with Nate Pearson a couple of years ago when Nate was coming back from the shattered elbow, where they brought him in for 3 or 4 innings and then a 5-inning start, and then a 3 or 4 inning and then a 5-inning start. And I think they're going to do the same thing with Ricky T there. So where he ends up is going to be AAA, and then he should be able to contribute to the Blue Jays stretch drive if they need him. Right, because he's not going to have all those innings. They're going to be managed, right? And when he comes up, maybe he'll be like a 6 starter, or if he excels at the major league level, then you can see him taking over. But I don't want to see him like that.
Yeah, and there's certainly no need to like force the issue. Okay, Ryan, before we get out of here, I want to run through a list of names, just to kind of like, what's the story on this guy right now, just to kind of give everybody an update. And the first, actually, Dulcimeris read my mind watching on YouTube here. He wants to ask about Spencer Horowitz. Seems to be blocked, lefty bat, first base, outfield. Keep thinking he'll get traded as a throw-in. Is that, Ryan, kind of your assessment as well? Talk to us a little bit about Spencer Horowitz.
Yeah, he just doesn't have the power to overtake anybody on the major league roster. He's got a great eye at the plate. He makes good contact, but the power numbers just isn't there, which is unfortunate because he's a good ball player. Right, so I can see him as a trade bait.
Fair enough. Yeah, talk to me about Sem Robertsi.
He's still raw. Give him some time. He's a guy that we need to really be patient with. I could see him spending the entire year at AA, just so that he can come up slowly.
He's really
just 21, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So would you say MLB has him at 2024? Is that accurate? Fair?
I think that might even be a stretch, and 2024 maybe late in the season. Mm-hmm. But why? Like, why would you bring him up? Who's leaving? Right? Who's leaving from the major league roster that you would need a starting pitcher? Right? They're just going to continue adding depth arms at AAA.
Right.
You got Mitch White, you got Thompson, you got so.
Mm-hmm. So one thing that fans will notice, if you go on to the Blue Jays top prospect list, all 30, there's a significant, Ryan, I don't know, maybe significant may not be necessarily the right word, but there is certainly some clear effort put into kind of those middle infielder types. There's a number of them on this list, but I wanted you to talk to me about Leo Jimenez.
Yeah, he's another guy kind of like Horwitz who just doesn't have the power numbers yet. He does seem to have that potential. He's got really good extra base power, but it's not over the fence power. And he's a guy who takes a lot of pitches, and he knows the strike zone, and he's able to put the bat on the ball. But sometimes he might press a little bit where he ends up getting the bat on the ball when he could have waited and puts it in play, and he's an out, right? So his batting average, it hasn't really been what we would like to see for somebody who's on the 40-man roster. And I think maybe the Jays jumped the gun on him a little bit by putting him on a 40-man roster because he had that month and a half, 2 months of absolute insane on-base percentage at Dunedin.
Interesting. Lastly, I know I'm hogging this. I'm just having a great time talking to you, so I'm hogging all the airtime. But so I'll do one more here before Steve and Karen, if there's anybody you want to ask Ryan about. But Ryan, one of the big things that I enjoy watching is when a young kid hears their name called and the family is like just exploding with emotion, and that's one of my favorite things ever to watch. And Irv Carter really stands out for me, kind of when he was drafted, and the Blue Jays actually, they made him a priority. I guess they met with him a couple of times, and like they had their sights set on him, paid him way more than was expected. So I guess my question, first of all, is why, and what can we expect from Irv Carter this season? Right now, he's the 27th ranked prospect in their system. So how how fast will he climb that list?
He's a young guy, right? So I can see him. They seem to take their time with him even last year. So he had a bunch of starts in the complex league, and then he finished the year in Dunedin. So I kind of see them doing the same thing with him. But you never know, because they did the same thing with Ricky. And we saw how quickly he moved up. So Carter's a good pitcher. He's got good stuff. It all depends on whether or not he's able to really refine that delivery and find a consistent release point.
Right.
He throws his fastball up in the mid 90s right now as a young guy. So as he gains strength, you might see that tick up and tick down, right? Mm-hmm. And he's another guy that throws a lot of sinkers. So we should expect a lot of ground balls from him. We love ground balls, don't we?
Oh yes.
So he's got a changeup that he's still refining. And it seems like a lot of these young kids, that once they figure out that changeup and how they can play it with their fastball, then a little light bulb goes off and they're able to move quickly. But right now, I would just leave him at Dunedin for a while, at least until after the All-Star break.
Right. Dulcimeris watching on YouTube wants to know about Bowden Francis. Looked better in recent months. What are your thoughts on him, Ryan?
Yeah, he had a bit of a tough go last year. He was very, very inconsistent. He had a month or two where he looked really good, and you're like, okay, he figured it out. And then the following month, you could tell he didn't figure it out, which is unfortunate. But it is what it is. This year, I don't know what they're going to do at AAA. It seems like outside of Casey Lawrence, everybody else is just pitching 3 innings, 4 innings. I don't know if they did that a lot last year, so it's possible that Bowden Francis is just going to be a multi-inning reliever type guy now.
All right, we're going to throw it over to Steve for our next one.
I was going to talk about a player, but as we were talking here and all these players that, well, they have this thing or they drafted a broken things. I personally feel since the Jays have had to pick lower in the draft, they have not done a very good job with their major league draft. What is your assessment over, let's say, the last 3 or 4 years? Have they drafted well, or have they missed more than they've hit?
I think there's some interesting guys from, if you want to just look at last year's draft, that they picked up some arms. Connor Cook is a guy that I'm going to keep a close eye on, because he's got a wicked fastball, and I think that they've kind of focused on those type of guys in the later rounds where they have a live fastball, and you can't teach a 96 mile an hour fastball. You can teach somebody how to refine it and how to locate it, but you can't teach somebody how to throw it that hard, right? So I think that and every major league club is doing the same thing, right? Like everybody wants power pitchers in their bullpen. But guys like that, was it Cooper Benson is another guy that I like that they took, and he's in Vancouver. Both of those guys are in Vancouver. But I think that some of the guys at Dunedin that are starting to come up now from their international free agents, the J2, those guys are the ones that I'm really interested in, because you just don't know anything about them, right? And if we can get a couple more Gabriel Martinez types, then that's how you fill up your system.
All right, Karen, over to you.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask you what you think about Adam Macko. So the Blue Jays went and got him in the Teoscar Hernandez trade. And we all heard at the time that he's actually someone who was sought after by however many clubs. I don't know if that was Ross Atkins trying to make Jays fans feel better about losing Hernandez, or if there's actually any truth to that. So what do you think of him? Do you see him as a useful major league pitcher at some point? Could he maybe be another left-hander out of the bullpen so that it's not just Tim Meza?
But he's a tough one for me to assess right now because he hasn't pitched since I think last May.
I see.
All right. So so all the reports are that he's got a live arm. And with a live arm, you have a lot of wild, but the reports are that he's got upside. So I can't wait to see him, but I don't have a definitive answer for you. Sorry, Karen.
Oh, that's fine. I didn't realize. So what happened? Did he have Tommy John or something, or I didn't hear?
I don't. Off the top of my head, I can't recall. I've been so focused recently on everybody that's pitching.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. So before we get out of here, Ryan, we've been throwing a bunch of names at you and all of that stuff. And some of the names obviously are known to a lot of Blue Jays fans. Some may not be, but I want you to now tell us, who should we be watching for outside of all of those names? Obviously, I'm not going to make it that easy on you. Come on.
Yeah.
But who is somebody that you kind of, for whatever reason, people should be paying more attention to?
Yeah, you know me, Shaun. I love them all. I really like Zach Britton. I like the package that he brings. I'm really hoping that he can get back on the field. He's a guy that's injured right now. But like you said, Leo Jimenez is a good guy if he can show some power. And in that same kind of breed is Miguel Geraldo. He's lost a lot of luster. He was a guy that was kind of highly thought of when he was signed a few years back, but again, power hasn't really developed. But he's got a lot of speed, and he plays the infield. So the Blue Jays just seem to be filling up that infield. But yeah, like I love them all. It's tough, right?
But that's really funny because, Ryan, more than a lot of people who do cover the minor leagues, you have a very practical view of them despite your affection for them. Ryan, for those of you who don't know, Ryan is very much somebody who lives and breathes minor league baseball, and yet will be the first to tell you that they're there to be traded, which I find, you're attached to them, but in a practical perspective, I guess, which is unusual for people who cover the minor leagues.
Well, and for me, I always look at it this way. I can't do what they do.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I'm never going to be like, well, this guy, I used to label guys as organizational fillers. And then I was put in my place by a gentleman that explained it in a perfect way. And I took to it that, what they can do with the bat and what they can do with the baseball, none of us can do it, even at the lowest level. So why am I going to say this guy's garbage and should be traded? Right. Mm-hmm. But while I was saying that, one of the guys that would be a fun guy to keep an eye on is TJ Brock. He's a guy that has a fastball that could potentially be touching triple digits at some point. He just needs to, again, because he's new, he's got to refine that delivery and find that release point. But he's a guy that's in Vancouver right now, and he's getting a lot of innings. So I can see the Blue Jays really looking at what they have there. So keep an eye on him.
Excellent. All right. Ryan, thank you, man. That was a lot of names. Karen's got one more question before we head out of here.
Not so much a question. Just when you mentioned Zach Britton, I was down at spring training for a little over a week, and I got to see a little bit of him play. And my impression is that he's an interesting hitter. On the other hand, it got to the point where when a ball was hit toward him in the outfield, I got very nervous. He botched a few plays.
Well, and I'm glad you bring that up because I've had a couple people compare him to Varsho, and they're like, well, he played catcher and now he's in the outfield, so is he like a Varsho? And I remember seeing everybody doing that when we had Jose Bautista, and they were like, well, this guy's a 27-year-old and he might be a late bloomer just like Jose Bautista. Not everybody's a Varsho, not everybody's a Bautista, right? So I'm glad you brought that up.
That's funny. Imagine. But yep. Anyway, people think what they think. Nothing we can do about that. Anyway, Ryan, I want to thank you very much, buddy, for taking your time to join us here on the podcast and talk minor league baseball. I love it every time you're on, and I learned something extra that I didn't know before. So thank you very much, bud.
Thank you.
My
Take
pleasure.
care.
Take care, guys.
And for all of our listeners and viewers and all that stuff, that brings us to the end. It was a great episode. I loved when Ryan comes on because he always has things that I can't possibly, I'll speak for myself, can't possibly I guess watch and follow as much as Ryan does. So I appreciate all of that, and hopefully you all enjoyed some of that as well. Let us know in the comment section, either on Facebook or YouTube, and keep that conversation going, because the funny thing is that there's just that many more players that we can talk about, and that much more discussion for all of us to enjoy. So keep it going in the comment section. Thank you to everybody for tuning in on the audio version as well. Make sure you're subscribing, whether everywhere. Subscribe, follow us everywhere. Social media, we're everywhere. Look for Jays from the Couch, every single damn place, and you will find us. We are there. We put a lot of effort into being there, so come and join us. Don't forget our Blue Jays Talk for All Facebook group. Game chat's going. Lots of fun happening. So for Karen, for Steve, and for Ryan, this is Shaun Doyle. You can follow me on Twitter at Doyle JFtC, hoping life gives you a juicy fastball down the middle and you don't miss it. Take care.